Hi and welcome to The Print. I'm Karanjeet Kaur, a journalist and an editor. Today I'd like to read you some excerpts from my column on Smriti Singh, wife of the late Captain Anshuman Singh, who has been the center of an ugly misogynistic debate about the Army's next of kin policy. Over the course of 2 short weeks and a few videos, Smriti Singh has experienced the full force of India-grade misogyny. The 26-year-old is the wife of Captain Anshuman Singh, who died in July 2023 in a fire accident in Siachen after rescuing 3 other colleagues. Smriti somehow went from being a Veer Nari and a heroine to a scheming gold digger. Now, Smriti Singh first shot to virality on 7th of July this year, when the Ministry of Defence tweeted a poignant video titled Love at First Sight. This was a short video of Captain Singh's mother and wife receiving the Kirti Chakra, and it included an interview with Smriti Singh. She spoke movingly of the first flush of love, their long-distance relationship that spanned 8 years, and a marriage that lasted only 5 months before Captain Singh lost his life. The day before she received the fateful news, Smriti said in the video while holding back tears, she and Anshuman had had a long conversation about the next 50 years of their life. By the early hours of 19 July 2023, he was gone. Smriti, still clearly heartbroken and a little shocked, said in the video, "Till date, I'm unable to cope up. I've hoped that maybe this is not true." She ended the interview with a wonderfully wistful, quotable quote. "I considered myself the top priority for Anshuman. Turns out, I'm just a little behind India." The video drew thousands of comments, many of which lauded Smriti for being so composed despite her obvious grief at losing a partner at such a young age. Some of these comments were tearful, some honored her stoicism, and yet others proffered help. Sadly, that's how far the nation's empathy could be stretched. Within days, the National Commission for Women had to step in and call for the arrest of Ahmed K, a social media user who left a lewd comment on the video. This was one among several putrid comments remarking on the young woman's appearance. Meanwhile, Reshma Sebastian, a Kerala fashion influencer who bears a resemblance to Singh, was brutally bullied on Instagram and had to clarify that she was not the late captain's wife. Sebastian's images were blatantly misused to make insinuations against Smriti and spread misinformation about her. But perhaps the hardest blow was dealt by statements made by Smriti's own in-laws, R.P. Singh and Manju Singh. The tide began to turn somewhere around 9th July, when the late captain's parents met Rahul Gandhi in Rai Bareli, followed by interviews with multiple media outlets. In these interviews, they criticized the Army's next of kin policy and stated that even though they had lost their son, they did not get anything. It took sources in the Army to clarify that the parents had actually received 65 lakh rupees, half of the Army Group Insurance Fund of 1 crore, and nearly a third of the 50 lakh aid announced by UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. After that, the tenor of the interviews completely changed. R.P. and Manju Singh now accuse their daughter-in-law of disrespecting their late son, of breaking all contact with them and changing her permanent address. They even suggest that she is planning to flee the country with the Kirti Chakra. Now, I'm not entirely sure why the elder Singhs have chosen to direct their ire so publicly at their young daughter-in-law. But first things first, there is absolutely no doubt that their loss as parents is irredeemable. Even language fails at accurately capturing the pain of a bereaved parent. And the complex emotions that accompany such a loss can manifest in unexpected ways. The Singhs' desire to maintain a connection to their son via their daughter-in-law is completely understandable at a human level. But can the public airing of what should have remained private discussions between a family be put down to sorrow alone? And if the in-laws have been so forthcoming with their criticism in the media, isn't there a possibility that they were doing the same or worse with her in private? The fact that Smriti has not retaliated or aired her views on the subject has meant that Indian uncles and aunties have a field pass to skewer her. It's given them a chance to click their tongues at love marriage and how scheming Indian bahus no longer respect their in-laws because they're too educated and too independent. In all of this, one thing is clear. Smriti Singh is paying for the audacity of taking what she's legally entitled to, which is the compensation, the pension, the honor, and the Kirti Chakra. And for this cardinal sin, she must be labelled a gold digger. Smriti has played no part in the army's NOK policy and has received the benefits in accordance with her late husband's explicit wishes. But in the narrow bylanes of the Indian internet, she has preyed upon her innocent in-laws. Her grief, her hopes and dreams, and her goals are somehow subservient to those of her in-laws. But what are the goals of the in-laws? According to numerous interviews on record, R.P. Singh has made some remarkably offensive and outdated statements. In a YouTube interview with Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj, a prominent men's rights activist, he put forth 3 choices to Smriti, including offering that she marry his younger son. None of these choices allow the young woman to do what she feels is right, which is presumably not live with her in-laws, considering we are no longer in 1856. Over and over again in that video, the father-in-law drove home the point that he was the mukhya or the head of the household, that he had a zimmedari or responsibility towards Smriti, even though Smriti's family categorically refused the offer to marry his younger son. He even made a point about not demanding dowry, which is a non-bailable offense in India. And he also declared that contract marriage is common among her community. He also breathlessly insisted that the Singhs were willing to pass on the first child of the family to Smriti, though we were never told if this was something she had asked for. So really, is the problem the NOK policy? Or is it that we are still unable to digest that a woman, especially one who has lost her husband, can have complete autonomy over her life? Despite passionate proclamations from the Singhs, why is their support entirely conditional? And what hinders our ability to understand that Smriti's supposed decision to go no contact with her in-laws can be just as valid and carry the same weight as the lamentations of her in-laws? The vitriol aimed at the young woman is a reflection of a more insidious problem. Her autonomy dysregulates a patriarchal order that underpins Indian society and sees Indian women as the repository of familial honor. It forces women to play by the rules and heavily penalizes those who don't, often via a good old public shaming. Smriti's refusal to play the grieving widow to our exact specifications is a direct challenge to the power structures that benefit from women's compliance. In a world that treats women's boundaries as negotiable, Smriti Singh has firmly drawn hers. She has every right to lead the life she chooses, shorn of our collective expectations. She's under no obligation to be a model daughter-in-law, fading into the background on cue. And she owes nothing to the rest of us. She likely has no use for our performative sympathy. I wonder if the severe reaction Smriti has drawn would have been quite so potent had she not been an educated and articulate young woman with a mind of her own. What if she had appeared in public as a self-abnegating widow? What if she had chosen an ashram instead of Australia and had countered the attacks on her with a demure bow of her head? Would the Indian public have been any kinder to her? Unlikely. Just ask Nupur Talwar, mother of murdered teenager Arushi Talwar, whose grief was deemed too little to be believable. Or even Riya Chakravarti, girlfriend of actor Sushant Singh, who died by suicide, and whose grief was considered too much to be authentic. In the end, Smriti Singh's greatest transgression is her refusal to be buried alive in the grave of self-abnegation that society has so thoughtfully prepared for her. Her silent defiance reminds us that a life of one's choosing is one worth living. May her example inspire others, much to the horror of uncles and aunties all over India.